Michelle was born in West Texas. Her grandfather was involved as a blacksmith, and her father was an amateur painter, and through this heritage that she had, she developed a love of art and sculpture. My first studio experience in Houston was in a 5-foot square space in Michelle's studio. I asked Michelle, I really think I would like a studio space, so I took some tape and put it on the floor and marked off 5 feet. And then a month went by, and I said, Michelle, can I have 10 feet? And then can I have 20? And it just got bigger and bigger. And so that studio is on the other side of the building, and then Michelle took over this amazing space. So one of the things I have to tell you about Michelle is that she is incredibly generous, innovative, and remarkably hardworking. So as you look around, you can see both on X, which is one of our small study plans for some larger pieces, and bits and pieces of some monumental sculpture, which, of course, she is really well known for. The other thing that you recognize when you see her work, all of this is her work. The other thing you'll recognize is that there is a sense of the organic in her work. It doesn't seem like you're looking at man-made, mechanical, geometric kinds of things. All of them relate to forms in nature, and that also relates to her spirit, which is so beautiful and so amazing. I'm really proud to call her a friend, and I'm delighted to introduce her to you now. So could you help me welcome Michelle O'Michael?
Welcome to my studio. Thank you for coming. I don't know what to say about my work. I hope it speaks for itself. I started in the 90s and had a studio here in the other part of the building that I was just using for a showroom and to store some of the finished pieces. And then Ellen ended up doing my room for a while. And then I got this space, which is better. I got this for the showroom, and I work out there, and so I can store finished pieces in here and have a little office we built out there. So I've been welding since the 90s, and I started because I was doing paperwork with an artist, Jesse Robson, of Wellman, him here in town. And we were written up in Museum on the Arts magazine, which is now defunct. And the 3 women were not serious artists, and the 2 men were. And I took that as a challenge. So I learned well. I'll interject some stories here. When I checked out all the schools in town and thought the best place to study was at the HCC, where all the guys go to get their certification. And these are guys who make a living welding. I grew up in West Texas, and welders always blowing up pipelines and killing people. And I live here, and every once in a while you hear about the welders blowing up barges and killing people. I wanted to learn to do it safe. So I went to the school, and the teacher didn't want me in the class. Old lady, you don't want to be here. And this was back, I was one of the first women who started welding. There are a lot of us now. So I go to the class the first night, and was going to ask the teacher a question and called his name, and he turned his back on me. He did not want me in that class. That's okay. The reason you don't want me here is the reason it won't make any difference whether you give me the time of day or not. The next class, I showed up with 2 dozen chocolate chip and oatmeal cookies. And the 30 or 40 guys who were in the class who already knew how to weld, they had jobs, they were just trying to get the next certification to make more money, were in my booth, and they taught me to weld. Really nice guys. Some of them mentored me for like 20 years. So my craftsmanship is really good. I think it's above average for a lot of artists who just, learning to run a bead is not hard. Learning to be a welder and having skills is another issue. And these guys know all sorts of tricks. So I learned things that I wouldn't have learned I wouldn't have learned from the people. I learned it from the guys who work. You know, 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. These guys know what they're doing and do beautiful work. So I also found when I started welding that I really liked it. I like working with the metal. I like working with molten metal, and I found I like fire. So about 2 weeks into the course, I came home, and it's just dirty work. It really is filthy. And I had soot all over my face, and I had caught my shirt on fire. The front was gone, and I was so tired. I had those steel-toed boots on. And so I came home, I sat on the sofa, and I said, "Oh, Steve, would you please take these boots off?" I was sure they weighed about 55 pounds apiece then. And Steve, I said, "I just don't know that I can do this. I'm never going to be as strong as the guys." And Steve said, "Michelle, you come home from the office, you throw your briefcase, 5 minutes, you're yelling about something." He said, "You're filthy. You burned your shirt up. You're exhausted. And you had a smile on your face." Mm-hmm. Good husband, my Steve. So I started out with simple things and have gotten more and more complex. Steve has retired and is running a studio now, which frees me for design and other things now. So you'll see on the wall over there the 4 colored towers. That's my last year's finished a 7-year project. Those are 4-story computerized light towers in front of City Hall in Arlington, Texas. They're stadium lights. They're wonderful. The transformer's on the ground, and you open it up, and there is a color wheel. That's how precise those lights are. You can have multiple colors on one tower. Each tower is independent. You can do something different with each tower. They can make the colors look like they're spinning around, turning them off and on when you've got multiple colors on the towers. They can make them look like flames where they're going up and down the towers. So they're pretty awesome. So that was what I finished last year. And to the right is another 4-story. The yellow one is a 4-story sculpture I did for Preston Plaza in Dallas. And it's where Tootsie's and a lot of those things are in University Park. So
next to the location, I'm familiar with Dallas.
Yeah. So
around Preston and Northwest Freeway?
I can't tell you. I don't know where Steve went. He can tell you. He drives.
Okay.
It's at that Preston Plaza is the name of it, and it's where Tootsie's, and it's an older shopping center. They've redone it. So they're independent buildings, and you come in, and there's you come in about a block, and there's stores all along, and then there's a roundabout, and that's where my sculpture is, and then there was restaurants down here. It's near the First Baptist Church.
Yes. And what Northwest Freeway you're Preston?
The trust, the yellow one, was through an art consultant. And mostly it's word of mouth and people just knowing my work. The Arlington Towers, I had a piece in a show in Dallas it was one of those rotating shows, and it was on a corner for a year. And the architect who was doing the project, Arlington completely redid the infrastructure of this in front of their city hall. It's a Bauhaus building built in probably the 80s. It's just a rectangle building, and they wanted to give it some more personality. So they completely did the infrastructure. You know, they dug up the street and redid all that, and they redid the stairs and made them decorated, you know, with planters and big concrete spheres. So the city hall is on this side of the street. There's 5 lanes, and then there's Founders Park, which is a green area, and then the convention center's behind that. And they close off the streets for events, a special event, and they'll have food trucks come in and close the streets off. And so this was a 7-year project. And mine, of course, was the last thing to go up. Everything else had to be finished. And in that 7 years, we had an election, and there was that event in North Carolina, and then there was the event at Southwest by Southwest in Austin. So they took their $26 million budget and increased it another $2 million. And at the ends of the block, they've got ballards that, to stop traffic, metal pipes, and that they go all the way across the block, the sidewalks and stuff. But the ones on the street are in the ground, and that's a 5-foot by 4-foot hole they had in concrete place that they put these stainless steel ballards with lights on top. And when after the food trucks get in, then they put the ballards up. And those ballards can stop a 5-ton vehicle at 30 miles an hour. So I'm really impressed with Arlington for doing everything right. That they didn't pinch pennies versus safety. They made safety first, and I really appreciated that. So my lights define that area on the street. There's 2 on one side and 2 on the other side. So most of my referrals for smaller pieces like this that go in people's yards are word of mouth. I have a gallery in Dallas that I show with, but here in Houston it's mainly word of mouth. It's just simply that way.
Do people usually put them inside or outside?
Both. I had one that I thought was going to go outside. A decorator wanted it. It was an 8-foot abstracted torso, female torso, and he put it in his high-rise, right beside the window, and then he passed on and his son has it now. His son put it outside. Cool. So, yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the Hebrew letters that you were involved in and so forth? I think everyone would be really fascinated to know that.
Well, I'm going to give you the precursor to that. I always thought that I had Jewish ancestry because of the way I look. I have notes. And I found out recently that I'm actually 23.5% Jewish. I don't know how you can do that.
Got some kicking ancestors back there.
50-50. And, but I had always been interested. And studying with some people, Harry is one of them, that just some spiritual people that I know, and the people that at the Path of Tea, where the tea came from, I learned, I'd already knew about intent, setting intent and what you do, and I wanted to make sure that it was in my art, that well-being was in my art, because otherwise I'm making non-functional objects for a living, and I wanted them to be more than that. So they introduced me to this little book called 72 Names of God. You can get it on Amazon for $6. And there's an app for that, and I have it. I showed Alan. I don't know what you can see, but it has is that Hebrew?
Yes.
It's Hebrew, not Sanskrit. And it has the name of it under it. And if you hit that, it has a little poem, and you can see the Hebrew better, and it has the name of the letters up there. And what I was taught was, if you just look at that word for a minute, you get what the message is. You don't have to be able to read it. You don't have to just look at it. So it's a meditation thing. And I found it most comforting and useful. And so I started taking this one, and frequently, it's not on some of the older pieces, but I'll sign it on my art sometimes. But all of them have it under the coating. I go under the coating with chalk and write and do do the ones that I think are appropriate for that one with my intent, and put it under the coating. And I really believe it works just from some of the experiences I've had with it. Like I was at the Path of Tea one time. A lady I knew that was there, and I had some of my parts in there, and she was facing them, and I could tell she was having a very serious conversation with her friend. And her friend left, and after a while she came and she said, she said, we were talking about such and such. It was a traumatic thing for her. And she said, but I kept looking at your hearts, and I knew I was going to be okay, and I cried. And I went, okay, it's working. It's working. So I really believe that makes a difference. So I'm doing that even on the 4-story ones. Harry has helped me. It's been hot every time we've done it. It's like 95 degrees outside, 95% humidity, and we do it after hours in the shop where all the workers have left. So we're there at the hottest time of the day, like 3 to in the summer. And with our chop, we write them all up and down the sculptures. It's taken us a full day each time, and I think one of them took us a day and a half to write all those on there. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish with them. I want, there's a lot of people that are dealing with political issues and things like that in their art, and I want to pass on well-being and love and compassion. The other people can handle that. I want everybody to feel good.
So each person has one of these. Would you like to read it, Michelle, or do you want me to read it louder? Okay, here we go. Okay, so what you have, who's good at their Hebrew? She reads Hebrew. Papaya? That's as close as we've gotten. So papaya, I believe, but it says like attracts like. And the poem or the meditation is, when I emulate the Creator's love for all humankind, I bring love into my own life. I create harmony between myself and other people, and between humanity and the natural world. That's so beautiful. That's so amazing. So you heard Michelle talk about the importance of the path of tea. Is that what it's called?
Don't you get her.
I'll look at that now. Right now. Oh, that's good.
Excuse me, just I'm going to try to get back over here.
Because of her love of tea, Susanna was clever enough to find something that connects Michelle from tea. So this is from the entire Sisterhood with the eye of Susanna.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. What is that? Yeah. So you have a tea ball.
Japanese tea set. So when you go to the park, you can make it tea the whole day.
Wow.
Harry, it's got a drain. Harry has lived in Thailand and India, and he does go to tea where you do.
Everybody can see what's saying.
I'm actually very familiar with that particular set. It's a beautiful, beautiful set. It's a tea set. It's a tea tray. So if you spill, it absorbs it.
Drain
Gives a great, but a portable one you can use anywhere.
Yes, it's not good.
I'm not a student of art, but I'm still an art education and